What's going on, guys? Welcome to a new video. Today in this video, I want to talk a little bit about a topic that I think is worth considering and is worth kind of expanding on in your own minds, in my opinion. I think in life, it's very important to ask yourself certain things, have a list of questions that you like asking yourself every now and then, and actually take the time to answer them. Question that I think is important that a lot of kids these days ask themselves is if going to school is worth it. So throughout the years, we've been seeing a big boom in social media and marketing. Everything really has kind of flipped over where nowadays people are aspiring to want to do what they see other people doing on YouTube or on any other various social media platforms. And though, yeah, it's cool to have ambition and it's cool to have, these kinds of desires, it's known that social media gives a unrealistic expectation as to what your life is going to look like. But it's not to say that you can't, do the things that you want to do. It just means that you got to be able to think about the things that you are able to do with the cards that you're dealt. With that said, a little bit about myself. I graduated high school when I was about 15 or so. And shortly after that, I did drop out of college just because, I just didn't want to go. I was just going because people were telling me that it was the smart thing to do and that I should do it because that's what everyone else was doing. Problem is with that is that when you're young, you don't understand the magnitude of your actions and you don't quite have the ability to think far into the future as an adult would be able to think far into the future. Additionally, some people might not have any good role models in their life to be able to kind of influence them to even go to school or even see how going to school could benefit them. So as a result, I ended up dropping out and I just, did whatever sounded cool at the time. And I didn't really have too much of a plan. I instead just kind of stayed playing games all the time and I just kind of made YouTube videos on a game called RuneScape. And you know, it was a good time. I had fun as a kid, but as I've grown older, as I've become an adult, as I've lost my hair, I've learned that there's an important thing that people must be able to do, and that is be able to think about your future and the things that you care about doing for a significant amount of time to be able to make money. So as a result, I did end up going back to school, and as of now, I think that the field that I'm working towards it's something that I see myself being semi fulfilled in. So we just kind of roll with it and we just kind of go with it from there. Now, the biggest thing that you need to ask yourself when choosing if you want to go back to school is can you see yourself making money in this line of work? Now, a lot of people will say, "Oh, just make sure you're having fun, make sure you're happy with what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera." And yes, that is a very big factor, and that is a very important factor when it comes down to choosing a profession, so that you avoid burnout and so that you avoid doing something that you don't necessarily want to do 100%. But it's important to know that you are spending a significant amount of time in training. And if you end up spending all this time in training just to not get a job, just to not get a job in the field that you're working towards, then what's the point? At the end of the day, the schools are going to benefit whether or not you pick this major or that major. So it's very important to see if this is something that's going to make you money in the future and it's going to leave you fulfilled. Another thing you need to consider is, are you okay with being told what to do for a certain amount of years of your life? Going to school is hard. I'm not gonna lie with you. It's hard. There's certain kinds of things that you need to be able to do coming out of school. And so they make sure that, they have a bar and minimum requirement that you are able to kind of meet. And to be able to meet that bar, it's very important that you stay determined and stay disciplined in your ability to kind of sit down and do something for hours and hours on end, even if you fail over and over again. Because when we fail, we get upset with ourselves. We take it out on ourselves, or we might take it out on other people. And so you got to be able to kind of control your emotions to a certain degree and find out how not to lose your cool when it comes down to learning something and progressing through the academic ladder. Because I really operate on this one notion that if it was very easy, then everybody on this earth would do it. There's a certain level of discomfort that comes with school that a lot of people are not comfortable feeling. And so you need to be able to surrender that control and basically figure out what you are able to control, so that you are able to come out of the program that you're going into as competent as possible. Another thing is, yes, friends are cool, but at the same time, are you willing to put aside friendships to be able to focus on your academics, depending on where you want to go? So, for example, if you want to be a doctor, or you want to be a lawyer, or something that's very specialized, it's very important that you are proficient in the line of work that you're getting yourself into. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be paid for how competent you are in the field. With that said, are you willing to be able to sit down every day if your friends are out there spending a lot more free time doing whatever they want to do, and you're just crammed up in your room looking through books 24/7? Are you comfortable accepting that this is going to be the reality for the next few years while everyone else is progressing? Because if so, I think school is a pretty decent idea. When I think about all these questions, my first gut feeling is to say, no, it's not worth it at all. But, you know, that's just the short term brain talking. You need to be able to sit down and actually think about your life in the long term. How is it going to look like in the long term? So I believe that if you're honest with yourself and you're actually taking the time to kind of figure out if this is something that is feasible for you in the long run, I genuinely think school's a good idea. However, everybody's life is different. I think the most valuable thing in this world is experience and being able to read. A lot of things, especially in the business world, revolve around how well you pay attention and how well you're able to be disciplined. So when it comes down to being able to read and being able to educate yourself and gain these experiences, in the long run, it's going to benefit you because you are going to see how the world is working and how you're going to be able to understand the little strings that basically control the world and how they operate at a certain way. So yeah, school really gives you the opportunity to kind of be exposed to all of that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily tell you that, hey, this is what it is. School in general isn't necessarily telling you what it is that is controlling the world. They just show you how it's being controlled. They don't necessarily tell you that it is being controlled. They just show you the little framework that is used in this world. So there's a lot of things that you can learn in a classroom, 100%. But I also think that there's a lot of things that you can learn outside of a classroom. So there's a lot of people on this earth, and it's very important that you are able to not only be academically competent and academically attentive, you should also be attentive to the little subtleties in which people interact with each other in this world and how they manipulate each other because this world really is ran on manipulation. You want to be able to kind of study this at your own time as well. You want to talk to yourself. We live in a day and age where we're very overstimulated. Every single day, we turn on the YouTube, we watch videos, we look at TikTok, we feed on Instagram, we feed on Snapchat. And so we don't have time to sit in our minds and digest what is getting in our heads because it's always just getting in there. It's getting in there and getting in there and getting in there. And the more that the things that are getting in our mind is repeated, the more we start to believe certain things about ourselves and the more that we start to believe certain things about the world because there's no time to actually digest information as to how it is. So, when it comes down to it, you've got to be able to take the time to spend time alone and away and reflect on certain things. Journal down some things on a paper and pencil. Don't necessarily rely on your phone all the time. Maybe have a little bit of a document thing where you can kind of sit here and talk to yourself on a video every once in a while. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to not be afraid to fail. And that goes and ties into the concept of academics as well, because you got to be able to keep going despite failing. If you have a bad grade or if you have a bad experience with something, if you take the time to accept defeat and be like, okay, what did I get wrong? How did I get it wrong? Why did I get it wrong? You kind of take a moment to humble yourself and look at the little connections that led to you making an incorrect mistake. Again, it applies back to what I was talking about earlier, being able to self reflect, being able to look at why am I thinking this way? Why am I affected this way? And how am I thinking about this? And am I thinking about this wrongly or rightly or blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. I mean, look, this life is a little hard. I've seen a lot of kids out there who don't necessarily have a good upbringing and they don't have a lot of guidance, but I think anything in this world is worth fighting for. There's definitely a systemic thing in place that really prohibits people from lower classes and lower backgrounds from climbing to the top. And so once you begin to understand that the world is against you to begin with, it's not necessarily all that bad because you have the ability to do what you can to figure out what works for you. Unfortunately, if some people aren't able to go to school, there's 100 things that are out there. Being able to engage in a trade, plumbing, working on ACs, mowing grass, shoveling snow, landscaping. There's a lot of things that people who are too busy doing something else will need to pay another person for their services for. So, school's important, yes. I think it's a good stepping stone if you are able to go to school and find something that you like. It's 100% worth getting into. At the same time, if you feel like it's not for you, empowering yourself with skills that another person does not have the ability to do will set you apart from that other person. And it will allow you to make a living for yourself and take care of yourself and your family. So, with that said, you got to take some time to think about this and you got to take some time to think about the things that are available to you, okay? Now, most importantly, no matter where you decide to go and no matter what you try to do in life, make sure you approach it with respect and you approach it with calmness and you approach it with open-mindedness. You are going to meet a lot of people who are very proficient and very professional in the way that they push other people's buttons. And they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They do it to secure their spot. They do it to make you look like the bad person and piss off your employer. Once you start to realize that these people exist, you got to push yourself away from them. You got to not give them anything so that they don't take anything from you, okay? So, be careful out there, all right? Make sure that you're taking care of yourself and make sure you're aware of the evils of the world. Whether it's in the real world or whether it's in academics, it exists and it's not too different from each other. It's going to follow you throughout the entirety of this life. So, with that said, do what you can with the cards that you're dealt, like I've been saying. And at the same time, be kind with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and just see what you can do. Because at the end of the day, we're all on this floating rock for a little amount of time. And so we just got to make the best of it and see what we can do from there. Me personally, what I ended up kind of going towards was dentistry. So for me, when I dropped out of college for a while, I just didn't really find something that I cared about. And then when I went back with the notion that I wanted to go to medical school and be a physician doctor. But then I got my experiences. I went and shadowed some doctors. I went and learned about different professions out there and learned a bit more about the healthcare system. And overall, I found that what I liked doing more was more in line with dentistry. And so go out there, fail a little bit, go see what you like to do. And if you're not liking something, be honest with yourself. If you cannot see yourself doing this for a long time, be honest with yourself. This even applies to if you graduate school and you're in a job market. If you're in a job that you don't like and you don't like the way that it's ran and it doesn't align with your morals, be careful on where you surround yourself and be careful on the people that you surround yourself with. At the end of the day, humans have learned that the way that we can domesticate each other is by placing high, burdensome loans on the individual. Because once you have a giant loan on somebody and they have kids to feed, they're stuck. They're they're obedient for you because you are the supplier. Be careful, guys. It's a very evil world out there, but there's a lot of good in it as well. So surround yourself with the good. Find out what you care about. See what you like to do, and just kind of go from there. And also have some hobbies. Whenever you have the ability to kind of dabble in your hobby and do something that makes your inner child happy, I think that's also a big win, and it's something that's gonna keep you grounded when things are getting very difficult. So with that said, take care of yourselves, guys. Best wishes your way, and YOLO swag.
Bruh.